Hello and welcome to this Unified Communication Self-Training class GCS level. My name is Ilyas Namran and I'm a Regional Product Engineer here at Grandstream EMEA. I'm in charge of the Unified Communication and Collaboration solution, and in this class we're going to see all the call management features that we offer in our IP-PBX, the UCM 6300 series. So without further ado, let's get into this class. Now let's look at the agenda of what we are going to talk about in this call management class. The first thing that we're going to talk about is call transfer and call forwarding. And then we're going to talk about SIP forking, then D&D and call hold. And the fourth thing that we're going to talk about is call park. And the fifth thing is call routing. So let's start with call transfer and call forwarding. And we're going to learn about all the basic call management operation that the users can benefit from when using our IP-PBX, the UCM 6000 series. These call management features help controlling the calls, which is needed by users on a daily basis, no matter what type of business of endpoint devices they have. Let's start with call transfer and call forwarding, which are both necessary to be supported with all their types for the users. So call transfer is the operation that allows the users to send or transfer an ongoing call to another destination manually. And the UCM offers three types of call transfer. The first type of transfer is blind transfer. A blind transfer is a transfer to another extension without actually initiating a call to the end destination. And the transferring party is immediately disconnected. The call is blindly transferred to the destination, and music on hold will be played for the transferred party. The second type is attended transfer. An attended transfer is a transfer where before actually transferring to the destination, the call is put on hold and another call is initiated to confirm whether the end destination is actually available to take the call or not. The third type is seamless transfer. It allows the user to perform blind transfer using the UCM feature code without having music on hold being played during the transfer process. Please note that all of these types have their respective feature codes that we're going to talk about in a later class. But for now, in order to understand more about each of these transfer types, we're going to talk about them separately. Like it has been said, blind transfer is when a user transfers the call to another phone blindly without knowing if the new destination we're going to send the call to is actually available. We're going to assume that A, B, and C are SIP extensions registered to the UCM. The service of blind transfer can be used as you can see in the slide. A will dial B, B rings and answer the call, and they will be able to hear each other. Then B will dial the blind transfer feature code or just the blind transfer directly using the phone's button. Then B will trigger the blind transfer, either using a feature code or using the blind transfer button on the phone. And once this is done, A is going to start hearing the music on hold. Then B will dial C and then B will be disconnected from the call. C will ring and answer the call. Then A and C will hear and talk to each other. And the same scenario will happen with seamless transfer. And like I said previously, the main difference between the normal blind transfer and seamless transfer is the absence of music on hold in the seamless transfer. Also, when transferring the call, the person should dial the feature code followed by the extension number we want to transfer the call to. And in the example on the slide, if A and B are talking and B wants to transfer the call seamlessly to C, during the operation of transfer, the call between A and B will still be ongoing and no one will hear music on hold. And once C answers the call, B will be disconnected, then A and C will be hearing each other. With the attended transfer, the person that will transfer the call will actually put the ongoing call on hold in order to call the other phone to check if the person is available and wishes to have the call transferred to him or her. Then the call transfer will be completed. Basically, the attended transfer service will be done this way. A dials B, then B rings and answers the call. And in this case, A and B can hear and talk to each other. A presses the transfer button or dials the attended transfer feature code. And once this is done, B will start hearing music on hold. Then it comes the second part where A dials C, C rings and answers the call, then A and C can hear and talk to each other. So until now we have basically two calls in the same time, one with B and one with C. Here A will hang up the call with C and B will be connected with C directly and they will start talking to each other. And now let's move on to call forwarding. Call forwarding or call diversion is a feature which redirects a telephone call to another destination which may be a mobile voicemail box or another phone number where the desired called party is available. In the case where you are not available on a specific phone, you can configure the calls to be forwarded to another phone number where you are actually available to answer the call. We have 3 different call forward types available on the UCM. We have call forward always, that will actually forward all inbound calls. We have call forwarding when busy, which will forward calls when you are already on another call. Call forwarding when no answer, that will forward calls you did not answer. Sometimes when we had call forward enabled, we would like to have some exceptions when we want to receive the call and not make it forwarded for some specific extension or phone number. And for this reason, we have the option call forward whitelist to help you configure the list of phone numbers that will actually reach without being forwarded. In our example, call forward always is enabled and configured to redirect calls to the extension voicemail. And only extension 1000 can still make calls to extension 2000 through the UCM. The call from extension 1001 will be redirected to voicemail automatically. Users can always remotely change the call forwarding settings of another extension via feature codes. Additionally, a whitelist can be configured to restrict this ability to specific users. What we mean is that we have an option that will allow specific extensions to dial the remote call forwarding feature codes to set all forwarding for any extension, and this privilege can be given by the super admin. Now let's learn about SIP forking, which is used often by our clients, and it helps in many case scenarios. On the UCM, when creating a SIP extension, you have the ability to configure this extension to have multiple registrations at the same time, which allows the UCM users to receive the incoming calls to the extension in many devices simultaneously. This is what we call SIP forking. And you should note that there is a limitation regarding the number of registrations for the extension, which is 10 concurrent registrations. And it can be configured from the extension settings under the web interface of the UCM. You can still decrease this number by allowing, for instance, to have only 4 concurrent registrations for a specific extension, but the default setting is 1 registration for security purposes. Now let's talk about the not disturb and call hold, which are 2 call operations that we use basically every day. Let's learn about how we can configure them and the most important settings we have. The not disturb, or often referred to by its own acronym, DND, is a feature that enables end users to busy out a station and reject incoming calls. DND can be configured to get activated in a specific pre-configured period like holidays or after the office working hours, for instance. And just like call forwarding, DND feature can also have exceptions to make some phone numbers reach your phone and ignore the rest. And this is what we call DND whitelist, and you can configure up to 10 numbers in the DND whitelist. In our example, DND is activated during holiday time, and only extension 1000 can still make calls to extension 2000 through the UCM. The call from extension 1001 will be rejected due to the activated DND feature. Call hold is a feature that allows users to park the caller and to become unable to communicate with the person on the other end of the line. Meanwhile, the person who has placed the caller on hold is able to consult other services or perform other tasks during the hold time where the other person is listening to music, which we call music on hold. The UCM 6000 models allow users to select the music on hold file from the web GUI to play it. The UCM will initiate a call to the selected extension and play music on hold file once the call is answered, or they could record their own music on hold to override an existing custom prompt. Now let's talk about call parking feature. Call parking is a common feature that allows you to place a call on hold so it can be retrieved from another phone in the system. GrandStream parking feature takes this step further by allowing you to completely customize multiple aspects of the function. In order to park a call, users can do this operation in 2 different ways, either using the feature code #key72 during the call and it will be parked in the first available spot, or you can perform a blind transfer of that call to extension 700 to park the call. The number that will be used to retrieve the call, which we call the parking lot number, is actually announced right after parking the call. Then we move on to the next part, which is retrieving the call. In order to do that, you simply need to dial the call park extension where the call has been parked and it will be retrieved. If a parked call is not retrieved after the timeout, the original extension which parked the call will be called back. VPKs or MPKs must be configured as monitored call park with the desired parking lot extension. As you can see in the screenshot, which was taken from a GRP phone, the display will alternate between display in the parking lot extension and the call's caller ID name. And there is no need to configure anything on the UCM. The configuration can be done from the phones that support this feature. And the user must make sure that the right firmware version is installed on these phones to support this feature. And now let's talk about call routing configuration. Let's discover the settings available for routing the calls in the UCM. In order to route calls using the UCM models, outgoing calling rules are required to pair an extension pattern with the trunk used to dial the pattern, and this allows different patterns to be dialed through different trunks. You should know that you can create up to 500 outbound routes in all the models of the UCM, which actually helps users customizing their rules for routing the calls as they want. And in addition to that, the UCM offers a bunch of settings to suit all use case scenarios and deployments. When creating an inbound rule, users should configure the pattern option, which is a unique set of digits that will select the configured route and send the call to the designated trunks. And for security purposes, you can specify a password for anyone who wants to use this rule when making an outbound call. However, in order to place the call via the selected trunk, users must also specify the digits that should be stripped from the beginning of the dialed string and also the prepend digits. We can also think of the case where the trunk we want to use is down or busy, and in this case, users can configure a failover trunk that will actually be used to make sure that the call goes through an alternative route when there is a problem with the primary trunk. We should also note that there are two methods to manage the outbound route: privilege level and source caller ID filter. Basically, these two options are used as two ways to control outbound route permissions to decide which extensions are allowed to use the outbound rule to call external numbers. Some restrictions can be set as well. For example, the duration limit of call blocking or call duration. You could configure a blacklist to make sure that if the dial-in number matches the blacklist number or pattern, the outbound call will not be allowed. Also, sometimes you want to configure the outbound route to be used only during some specific periods or times, like for example during holiday time, office time, or a specified time. And this can be done by configuring time condition of the route. Then we have the DoD, or the direct outward dial-in, that allows subscribers within a company's PBX system to connect to outside lines directly. DoD can be assigned to a UCM extension or the UCM's fax send-in feature, VFAX. Example of a DoD. Company ABC has a SIP trunk. This SIP trunk has 4 DIDs associated to it. The main number of the office is routed to an auto attendant. The other 3 numbers are direct lines to specific users of the company. At the moment when a user makes an outbound call, their caller ID shows up as the main office number. This poses a problem as the CEO would like their calls to come from their direct line. This can be accomplished by configuring DoD for the CEO's extension. Inbound routes configuration is very important since it allows the routing of a call made to the UCM and directed to the right destination based on the pattern allowed or configured. When an external number calls into the UCM 6000 through an inbound route, it will be directed to the default destination configured for that inbound route. You should keep in mind that all the models of the UCM support up to 5,000 inbound routes. And of course, we have multiple configurations to help with creating the right routing rule for inbound routes. Of course, the first thing that you should select is the trunk for that inbound route. And just like the outbound route, the pattern should be configured as well for the inbound call in order to allow the call only if it matches the DID pattern. Also, you should know that the call coming into a created inbound route can be routed to a default destination. This default destination can be an extension, a voicemail, an IVR, a queue, etc. And if default destination is selected as by DID or external number, for instance, the call could be routed out to another external number through an outbound route on the UCM 6000. In this case, the administrator needs to configure the privilege level of that inbound route to control whether it is allowed to direct calls out to external numbers. Also, you should know that the pattern can be composed of 2 parts. Pattern, we talked about it previously, and caller ID pattern. The inbound route per caller ID is used to specify the caller ID, and it is optional. If set, it means only extensions with the specific caller ID can call in or call out. Scheduled inbound routes is basically the same as time condition. It is for setting a time condition for the inbound route to be used. And you can configure the blacklist to put some restrictions on the inbound route. For instance, anonymous calls can be configured on the blacklist in order to be rejected. And remember that we have talked about default destination that you can configure for the inbound route. You can set 2 different destinations for the inbound routes and switch between them when needed only using feature codes. And this can be done using the multiple modes option. You can also import and export inbound routes to quickly set up inbound routing on a UCM or to back up an existing configuration using a CSV file with all the routes information. Alert info header is specifically useful for distinctive ringtones. Prepend trunk name gives the ability to prepend digits in inbound route DID pattern.